Team their first loss? Let's find out. On the right, Dylan Donegan, Kazu Negri, John Rosum. Control in every seat. Different colors. But no green. Why would you play Forest?
Rosum, the only one not able to play Jace the Mind Sculptor.
And here we go. Mono red from Max McVety is Fanatical Firebrand to start off the game. We saw John Rosum actually defeat Austin Collins in this matchup yesterday.
Yeah, very similar deck list. I don't know how close McVety and Collins were. I believe they're extremely close. 70-ish of the same cards.
Yeah. Viashino Pyromancer will be attempted. And John, he will hit it with a cast down, but not before taking 2 damage off the enter the battlefield trigger.
And Rosum would have rather had one of his 3 Moment of Cravings. He plays 3 of both Cast Down and Moment of Craving. Cast Down does blunt the offense, but not gaining the life. That is a real cost in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, even Essence Scatter, in a way, would have gained the 2 life.
Yeah, against Pyromancer specifically, for sure.
Cast Down feeling like, I mean, it's another 2-mana removal spell, and his deck in the main actually is pretty heavy up on ways to deal with small creatures.
Yeah, he's also playing 3 copies of Ritual of Soot. We haven't seen that one come into play just yet, but it can matter in matchups like this, especially in the games where McVety starts running out some runaway Steamkins.
And John Rosum, I like this. What's happening here? McVety, without playing a 3rd land, leads on his Gitu Lava Runner. And Rossum's going to go ahead and spend his full 3-mana Sinister Sabotage on it before taking a damage.
Mm-hmm. And that's really just paying respect to the way that the mana curves line up in the matchup. Rosum wants to be using his mana every turn if possible. There's no guarantee that McVety plays a 2nd spell. And if you don't use that Sabotage, that creature's just going to start attacking you. And you look at this, McVety didn't even use the rest of his mana. So that's a pretty big win for Rosum.
4th land and a pass for John. And now McVety. Are we going to see our shocks going upstairs yet? I think so.
It looked like that would have happened. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what they're going to do in this matchup.
This Firebrand isn't worth a ton of damage as it swings in. I think that's its 4th hit of the game as it hits John to 12.
Yeah, that one's doing its job. You don't always get quite that many hits with that card.
Goblin Chain Whirler, I assume any counter spell is going to play here.
Right.
And John takes the damage.
We're at the stage where Rosum can start casting Vraska's Contempt, so we'll see if he has that one. Ooh, this is not as good.
Well, he's got Chemister's Insight. Now, if he had one of those Rituals of Soot, maybe he'd let this as a turnaround he'd take.
Yeah, taking 1 point there is fine, and then you could have if he had a Contempt even, you could save that for later. But he does have a Vraska's Contempt. Don't know if he picked that up off the Insight or not. He's weighing that versus Teferi here.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to find a window to get Teferi down, but this would be a pretty tough spot to do it.
Yeah, given the Contempt, you kind of want to wait until you have 1 more land on the battlefield so you can actually, or 2 more lands rather, so you can cast both. And he's going to go for Ritual of Soot. He did have it.
Yeah, so that's our black sweeper in Standard. Gets the 2 for 1. Now McVety will respond with another Chain Whirler. And here, Rosum is ready to cast Teferi. He will plus.
If he has a Cast Down to pair with this will be a very productive turn for him.
Yeah, I can't imagine he's playing this and just hoping to take the 3 damage. That feels pretty aggressive.
At the very least, I assume he has Syncopate or Essence Scatter.
If he didn't have any of those, I feel like Teferi would have -3'd there, just out of respect for Chain Whirler, and then may have, if he doesn't have anything to do with the 2 mana, like you -3, tuck the Chain Whirler, and hope that your Teferi survives.
Well, I think he also just would have played the Vraska's Contempt over the Teferi if he didn't have any of that.
Right, he still has the removal spell.
Yeah, not exposing the Teferi to something like a Viashino Pyromancer to finish it off.
That makes sense.
Ooh, and McVety's goes for attack. He does have the Cast Down. No surprises there.
And we're kindling Phoenix the follow-up from McVety, but you mentioned that Vraska's Contempt. That looks mighty good here.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be a nice exchange for John Rosum.
You can see Rosum pick up the pace of play a bit as he knows, yeah, he got to untap with the Teferi, and things are going well now.
Yeah, that's what this deck's trying to do. That's exactly it. Teferi is the hallmark card.
So while Rosum has pulled away with an edge here in Standard, he's got some work to do. Teammate Dylan Donegan loses the first game in the Grixis Mirror over in Legacy. Clay Spicklemire up 1-0.
Talked to Clay a little bit about that match last night. Consensus seems to be that Grist's Control is a reasonable favorite, but Spicklemire likes his side of the matchup, and he's showing that.
Yeah, you talk with Spicklemire, for someone still quite young here, Spicklemire, I believe, just entering college, and only been on the SG Tour for a little over a year. He's got a ton of confidence when it comes to really even just his legacy matchups.
Yeah, I mean, the kid plays a lot, and he's very good.
Yeah.
Very level-headed as well. Whereas if you talk to John Rosum, you get some really interesting percentages.
you know, he's got some self-awareness. I talked to him yesterday, and he was talking about Jeskai miracles versus Jeskai not miracles in modern. And John Rosum says, yeah, non-miracles is about a 70% chance to win. It's like, John, that can't be. We have to give that the old John Rosum adjustment. And he talks, he's like, yeah, that's about 15%, right? And he just says that straight up. Not even, he's like, and then he tells us what he's like, yeah, when I give you a matchup, you have to subtract 15. So we're probably a 55% favorite.
Right. At least you all know that.
Yeah.
You want to talk about being an advantage in the matchup, though. Rosum has landed his Chromium the Mutable, and I think he's pretty ready to start closing this one.
Yeah, there's a Chromium. There's a Teferi on 8. He's got some hard counters in his hand. He has 12 life points. We did it.
Right. Yeah, 12 is a lot, especially with the mana available to McVety, especially with the Teferi on 8. You're not even going to be able to assemble a good Frenzy turn from here.
I mean, it's the ultimate beatdown. Teferi making an emblem. We have another ritual, so that'll take care of the Runaway Steamkin.
Sure. He has Sinister Sabotage backup.
Yeah. Maybe even 2 of them.
I don't think he's going to need the first one.
It doesn't seem like it. Max has some burn, but not 12 points of it.
12 is tough. Can't really do that with 3 cards.
Max going to wait it out. We will see. Here's an emblem. Get ready for the beatdown.
Probably a second Teferi here.
Yeah. Cast another Teferi. Now he has an emblem. It'll plus, untap, exiles away a land. You know, John might attack with his dragon. He might just also hang out. Okay. He's not a total maniac. He'll attempt to end the game.
Yeah, it is. He would just kind of be showing off to not attack.
To just hang out and start exiling his opponent's lands.
That would just be rude.
And McVety picks up the card, so John Rosum, game 1, takes it with Esper.
Yeah, I'm curious to see the sideboard plan for McVety. This is something we saw an interesting plan from Austin Collins in this matchup previously, where he just immediately started playing Lightning Strike upstairs. It didn't pan out because he kept drawing Get to Lava Runner and Runaway Steamkin.
Yeah, you weren't that impressed with it. So the idea was what Austin was doing is there's so much spot removal on John Rosum's side that gains life. Is Austin took a different approach. He stopped playing all his creatures, he boarded in all his burn spells, and just upstairs to everything.
And the problem I had was that he had the creatures to draw, and he just wasn't casting them. So I kind of looked at the deck list before we started play here, and what I want to see McVety do is board out all 4 Steamkin, board out all 4 Lava Runners, bring in the Fight with Fires, the Rekindling Phoenix, the 3rd Experimental Frenzy, the Mountain, and the Risk Factor.
So with Rekindling Phoenix, the only life gain removal spell that works there is the Vraska's Contempt.
Right. You ask for specifically Vraska's Contempt. It gets hit by a counterspell. That's fine. At least you're starting to blunt the efficacy of Moment of Craving.
Yeah, I mean, counterspells are fine, right, because they don't gain life.
Right.
That's easy. Now, I like this a little bit more out of Max. Austin Collins only had 2 Experimental Frenzy. Max has a 3rd one in the sideboard, which on that specific game plan seems like a big card.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see if that's exactly how he configures it. And the Fight with Fires you want anyway, because you expect these white control decks to have some giant life-licking creature. Typically, it's going to be Lyra Dawnbringer. If you look over at Rossum's sideboard, the card he's bringing in is actually Vona, Butcher of Magan, but it plays just the same.
Now, if you didn't get a chance to see that matchup and want to catch up on all the action from yesterday, make sure you're subscribing to us over on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/StarCityGames. We do post full recaps of all our matches. They'll be tagged with the round and the players. That'll come out sometime at the conclusion of the event. And while you're there at the channel, stop by and check out some of the other things we have. We have our best ofs. We've had Flashback where we started to interview the players and learn more about the top pros here on our circuit, as well as Versus and Commander Versus.
Oh, yeah, a ton of excellent content there. Now we've done 3 different flashbacks, Todd Anderson, Jim Davis, Brad Nelson. They're all excellent watches. Could watch some great matches. We've seen quite a few this weekend already. This new standard format looks really nice. Zan Sayed versus Max McVety was a really explosive matchup. That one was fun to watch.
Middle seat still on game one. That's that 70-30 matchup John Rosum was talking about. Elenbogen's team has opted for the Opt Miracles build of Jeskai, whereas Kazu Negri not playing those sweepers, which then in turn get replaced with more burn spells, which figures to be good here.
Yeah, the advantage that Rosum was speaking to in the matchup is that Elenbogen's going to draw Terminus sometimes, and it's really poor in the matchup.
Yeah, specifically on Elenbogen's side, I believe he has a 2-bolt, 4-bolt, 2 Helix. Kazu's side, he'll have a 3rd Helix. He'll have at least 1 Electrolyze.
There's a difference with Elenbogen. He has 4 Terminus, right? Whereas Kazu is drawing to 2 Supreme Verdicts, which is a lot less of that kind of effect with the blank draw.
As such, it makes sense they're still in game one. This one's going to take a while.
Oh, yeah. It's a slow grind.
So one thing, our mono red deck has been undefeated on camera except for the matchup against John Rosum. I mean, the players we've seen playing it, Rudy Brixa, Max McVety, Austin Collins. Does this deck, the Esper Control, seem like a foil to it to you?
In a lot of ways, yes. The main deck Moment of Craving, I think, is something that players trying to play black in this format should be keyed into. It's a really important element. Rosum also identified Vraska's Contempt as one of the more powerful cards in the format. The fact that you exile Rekindling Phoenix, that you gain a couple life for your effort there, that's a really big deal. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, is actually just a really powerful card, whereas the mono-red to aggro decks bring Experimental Frenzy, so you want to have something that at least keeps pace with that, where a lot of these other decks don't have anything nearly as powerful as either of those 2 cards. I like a lot of what's happening here. I will say that I liked the style, the play patterns, the theoretical efficacy of this just go upstairs, no creatures burn plan. We started to see a little fleshed out with Austin Collins. I don't know if the deck list is there to make it happen fully just yet, but I think the deck could be tuned to play better in this matchup on the red side.
I'm interested to see McVety's opinion on it, because when you look at the difference between an Austin Collins and a Max McVety, Austin Collins is a bit of a good deck player in Standard. He'll play what's good each week and then show some general just like great play skill with it. Max McVety's a bit different. Max McVety is a red mage every week, which means when it comes to something like this, we're developing like full board plans like that. I think Max is going to have a lot of knowledge on this sort of thing, and we might see something different.
Absolutely.
He does Runaway Steamkin, play it out there, and it's going to be hit by Fungal Infection from Rosum.
That is really brutal. Yeah, the Steamkin has the highest ceiling of any of your creatures, but just not even really fully trading with that 1-mana removal spell there. That is really backbreaking. Yeah,
those out of the sideboard for John Rosum. I mean, then look at the 1/1 that on turn 2, McVety drew Fanatical Firebrand. So the fact that Rosum is going to score basically a straight 2-for-1 for a single black mana at instant speed, that's incredible.
That's really rough for McVety.
Another Runaway Steamkin. And I like how Max, there's some details in his sequencing here when it comes to land drops that are pretty interesting.
He doesn't give anything away. Just plays his 2-mana spell to 2 lands before making his 3rd land drop.
Now that said, the second Steamkin heats Moment of Craving. If Rosum just up the curve has removal spells, this matchup's very difficult.
And that's what we've seen every time we've seen a post-sideboard Runaway Steamkin against Rosum. It just gets hit by some removal spell right away. Steamkin is one of the better cards in the deck. It's one of the draws to play the deck, but Rosum's deck list is so good against Steamkin.
Cast down hits Viashino Pyromancer, so that one drops him to 18. Now Rosum has missed a land here. That doesn't seem like... Well, as long as his hand has all these 1- and 2-mana black removal spells, I don't think that will matter too much.
Well, McVety has drawn a bunch of lands, and he's casting Fanatical Firebrands against a Sapling token, right. So Rosum has some breathing room for sure.
There's something I want to point out, though. 1 blue mana source on John Rosum's side. If Max has Experimental Frenzy specifically, I am very inclined to jam it into single blue here.
Yeah, you do run the risk of running into Syncopate. Rosum playing 3 of those.
Yep.
We see him cast some number of Disdainful Strokes in the post-sideboard games as well. It is more inviting than trying to play into Sinister Sabotage.
And look at this Fungal Infection. How good is this, Ryan? Not only did it kill Runaway Steamkin, Max McVety is lightning striking the Saproling token. And it's probably correct.
Yeah, I mean, this is all his cards do. He needs to start attacking with these Firebrands if that's what he's drawn.
Another cast down from Rosum takes care of one of the 2 Firebrands.
Rosum's deck's a lot better at going late, so McVety is going to do anything he can to capitalize on this land stumbling on Rosum's side.
Yeah, the land stumbling in theory can be good here. Here's Goblin Chain Whirler, and Max was waiting to play it around Syncopate. That's where I saw land 5. But Essence Scatter will take care of it. And now he's really just looking for something like, I think Experimental Frenzy specifically off the top could save him here.
Yeah, that's one that he absolutely wants to draw. At least higher impact cards, so his deck does not have too many of those. More Chain Whirlers would be above average. Wouldn't especially mind drawing Risk Factor here.
3 upstairs, John allowed to 11. This is some huge stumbles for Rosum. So now look, he has a full grip. Down to 11, Max is getting away with 1. And here's 3 more off Wizard's Lightning, Rosum down to 8. Suddenly we have a game.
Yeah, these mana woes for Rosum, that's paying off for McVety. And I will say, you know, 3-color deck, Rosum's playing 27 lands, but his deck's not doing too much to hit land drops before he gets to 4. He just has these Chemistry Insights, which cost 4. You saw him discard the hand size there.
G2 Lava Runner from McVety with haste swings. Rosum taking 3. And suddenly, Ryan, we're going to get a W here for McVety. This is the type of game which this has got to hurt on John Rossum's side to let this go.
Yeah, you're seeing a major fail rate of his deck here. I mean, it just happens. His deck needs to hit land drops. That's why he's playing 27, but if you can't cast your spells, you can't win the game.
I mean, if you go back to the turn where Rossum's at 18 and McVety just has a Firebrand, you got to figure Rosum, as we've been talking about Rosum with percentages, right? He's probably over 90% to win from there. Just he had he has a lot of turns to draw land for, and probably any land will do it there.
And the early exchanges were so good. The Fungal Infection, the Moment of Craving. But yeah, you got to hit that 4th land drop at least with this deck.
And you can see it on both players' face, a bit of disbelief there. Rossum's side of, oh, thought I had that, and Max kind of like, thought you had it too, but did not pan out, and we're going to game 3.
And Max going back to the drawing board. Don't know if he knew about Fungal Infection or not. It's looking like he really doesn't want to be on Steamkins. We'll see if he reevaluates that plan.
Yeah, now that we see Fungal Infection in addition to all these Moment of Cravings and cast downs, I'm pretty off this Steamkin. For Max to play it at all, it feels like he has to have an instant to back it up the moment he casts the card. And that's too much to ask.
It starts looking like a turn 3 or a turn 4 play, and it starts as a 1-1.
Yeah, my turn 4 play is this 1-1. Is that good enough?
Right. But he gave it a look. I don't know if he actually reached for any cards there. It didn't look like he did.
Well, I think the issue, right, is that his creatures more or less are what they are. It would be great to board all of these out, but you only have so many spots, and this is one of your better cards. You may just accept that, but this is a bad part of the matchup.
Yeah, even with that plan I outlined, you do get stuck with some creatures. They are less awkward, though. You have a Fanatical Firebrands, though. Your plan is likely to not do attacking with them, just to not expose them to Moment of Craving unless you have a good window, or even to Fungal Infection. And then Viashino Pyromancer, but that one just kind of washes everything. You at least get that shock trigger on that creature.
Well, Rosum and McVety will go to a deciding game 3. We'll put Rosum back on the play. StarCityGames.com. Well, of course, we have game night. This is pins and tokens given away as prizes for your weekly tournaments all around the country. In October, we are giving away the Heads of the Class 3/3 Beast token. See this cat here. You can get that from winning a tournament near you. Next month, we'll be giving away Rise from the Nashes. It is a 1/1 elemental token and pin. Then in December, this is one I'm personally excited about, is the Bramblehopper Elite, this 1/1 elf warrior, because bunnies are elves. That one's an elf. An elf bunny, because it's the ears.
Oh, yeah, they both have ears that stand up.
You can get a store sign up for game night or find one near you at starcitygames.com/game night.
Some bunnies have floppy ears.
Yeah.
I think. I'm not...
Not archer bunnies, though, because then they need to be
You got to be able to, yeah. That's important. You don't want a floppy-eared archer.
No. Rosum has, I think, 2 lands here. And he'll send it back.
It's really tough for his deck to keep on less than 3 lands, unless he has all 3 colors covered and at least 2 of his spells cost 2 mana.
Yeah, maybe if he has Search for Azcanta, he can keep on 2 lands. But other than that, there's not much card draw before 4 on the curve.
This is a deck that I'd like to see squeeze some treasure maps in. That was a card I was talking about really liking in Andrew Tenjum's Sultai control deck.
I'll update. Andrew Elenbogen gets that 30% matchup over on the Modern seed in Game 1. John just can't believe it. How so unlucky in his match.
Must have just outplayed him.
Rosum loses his 90%. His teammate loses a 70. What's happening?
Yeah, you know, sometimes you run so bad.
This means some uphill battles here for Donegan and Negri. They could really use a win from Rosum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Grixis Control, Grixis Delver matchup in Legacy, much like Jeskai Control, the pseudo mirror in the Modern seat there, these matchups are very close, even with some significant differences on the deck list. Whereas the most different decks, of course, going to be at our standard table. With Rosum on a mulligan here, you don't love that.
Yeah, all the matchups are close. I do think that I like the Control players' matchups across the board here. None of them too strongly, but I think all of them have slight edges. That said, they're down right now, you know, all the matches.
Yeah. I mean, one thing is specifically on the Legacy seat, Grixis Delver. Delver of Secrets is just so punishing in the Legacy format. There's cards that are so much better than the cards in your deck, but just by virtue of being more mana efficient in a format where it's all about brainstorm and brainstorming away excess lands is so powerful, whereas the control deck wants to have more lands on average. That is an understated advantage of the Delver deck, and if you play it really tightly, like Clay Spicklemire does, it really pays off.
Yeah, both decks have a lot of overlap on cards. Right, the hope on Dylan's side is that he can dodge those wastelands and get to the point where he's casting Baleful Strixes, which he has 4 of, then he's a bit of a favorite here.
Right. But,
yeah, there's that fail rate where Delver never lets you get a second land into play.
Right.
Both players have kept on 6 here for game number 3. Rosum starting off on a pair of duels, and does look like he has Isolated Chapel in hand, so mana is set up as Runaway Steamkin being kept in by McVety is hit by Syncopate.
That's about the best exchange McVety could ask for on the Steamkin. It's not just a counterspell, but it's also that exiling counterspell.
Right, because you'd assume if there was Moment of Craving or fungal infection, that would have happened.
Oh, absolutely.
And John Rosum, Sinister Sabotage on the Lava Runner. He bins a land off the Surveil.
That's interesting, because he's casting his spells as if, you know, he only has so many spells to cast, and it could suggest that he has lands left over. I suppose he had exactly the 4th land drop, and that's where he's comfortable sitting for a while. That's what it looks like.
And you mentioned the pace of Counterspell game 1, and McVety got a benefit off at that turn. He goes for Chain Whirler here. Things are going pretty quick. But the idea was Rosum cashed in that Sinister Sabotage not knowing if there'd be a second spell, and as a result, Max's turn was Lava Runner, Pyromancer, and the Lava Runner got countered. That's a win for Max.
Right.
Chain Whirler resolves, but then gets hit by Vraska's Contempt. We go back over to McVety. Rosum 5th land into play tapped. He does have Teferi, but opted to tap in the land.
Yeah, unclear if he has another spell. It definitely makes a little bit sense not to shock for the land, but I would assume that there's another spell in hand at least.
Runaway Steamkin hit by Sinister Sabotage. That leaves both players with a 1-card hand, and Rosum's 1 card is Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. I like it here.
Right. I mean, McVety does like trading the Steamkin for the counter spells, but he needs some more action from here.
And Ryan, so John's hand was 5 lands in play was just Teferi. His draw for the turn was Essence Scatter.
That's a fine one, though. This is a great window if McVety can land an Experimental Frenzy.
Well, he may not be able to, but what he does get to do is Lightning Strike the Teferi, and then Pyromancer can finish it off. Fortunately for McVety, he had the burn spell and can keep Jonathan off that Planeswalker.
Yeah, and now Rosum has to answer the board. His deck does have a bunch of Moment of Cravings, those fungal infections. We've seen him just use counter spells so far.
He was really hoping that he could ride that Teferi in. And fortunately for him, has drawn Chemister's Insight. That'll really help. With that on the stack, we're going to see Risk Factor from Max McVety. John has a decision. He'll take 4 damage, go to 9, no cards.
From 13, taking 4 definitely makes sense with 2 coming off the top, though his life total is starting to get into a precarious situation.
Yeah, I mean, risk factor has been so impressive in this matchup. Historically, browbeat style effects in red decks look a lot better than they play, but I don't think that's true with this one.
Right. And this is a situation where you're seeing how much weaker Chemister's Insight is than Glimmer of Genius.
Yeah.
Rosum's looking for very specific things. He's on a low resource situation here.
Is that Invoke the Divine in Rosum's hand?
I believe so.
A jumpstart of risk factor. Rosum cannot afford to take 4 again, so he'll give McVety 3 cards. Gonna swing in. It's going to hit Rosum down to 7.
Yeah, with Essence Scatter plus Invoke the Divine, he'll have Experimental Frenzy covered or another creature covered, so
yeah.
I like Rosum's hand a decent amount. He still needs to find an answer to the Pyromancer.
And this is interesting. So he drew 2, and he could cast down the attacker, but he actually held up Essence Scatter, and he's rewarded. Now he'll get untap. He has Invoke the Divine, land, cast down. Nil pass. Does not play that land he has in his hand. Maybe he's hoping to jumpstart some of those draw spells.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. He has a good amount of mana to work with.
Cast down the Pyromancer. Here's another one. Is Jonathan going to go to 5? Yes, he will. Will McVety play another creature?
When life totals get like this, he's fairly comfortable just getting 1 creature on the battlefield, especially if a Pyromancer's not getting hit by a counterspell. You do want to try to read Rosum to see if he has a counterspell or what exactly is hanging out in hand.
Yeah, I believe it's Syncopate, Invoke the Divine, and Land right now.
Yeah, and that's a specific counterspell, Syncopate, where casting 1 spell a turn makes a good amount of sense. He could have paid 4 for the Pyromancer, couldn't pay for a second spell.
And Rosum really respecting burn spells. He could have jump-started a Chemister's Insight off that extra land in his hand. Just isn't going to do it. Cast down again hits the Pyromancer, so Max will have to play another threat. Rosum's really hoping he can syncopate it, but with 7 lands, that's not necessarily true. And Rosum, again, really respecting burn, won't jumpstart an Insight. I'm a bit sure that Rosum's not drawing 2 here, Ryan. Because his counterspell is Syncopate, he's never going to be able to draw 2 and leave Syncopate up. So he's kind of committing to just not ever jumpstarting those.
Yeah, and from 5, you want to be able to hit a Lightning Strike or a Wizard's Lightning. Going to 2 is so dangerous. It makes any shock lethal.
If that's the case, though, why is he holding on to the land in hand?
That I don't fully understand. There could be a situation where McVety empties his hand, you get to use a Syncopate, then you can start jump-starting.
Okay. Here's Legion War Boss out of the sideboard from McVety. Update. McVety's teammate Clay Spicklemire mentioned that Delver deck. Yeah, it can beat Control, and today it did. Spicklemire 2-0 winner. With Warboss on the stack, now Rosum's going to jumpstart the Insight.
Yeah, and so the sideboard plan McVety has gone for is to just shove more creatures into the removal spells. And against draws like this from Rosum, where he's heavy on counter spells, light on removal spells, didn't produce any of the good removal spells. You know, this is a big check for a Moment of Craving, but if Rosum fails it, this Warboss could be a big deal.
Rosum drew Chemister's Insight and a black card off of that draw 2. We'll see what the black card was. He's taking 1, so I don't think it's Moment of Craving.
Could still be Vraska's Contempt, but once the Warboss makes the token, that's quite a bit better.
No follow-up here from McVety. That's good news. John, maybe if it's Ritual of Soot would be ideal.
That would be nice.
Looks like it was Fungal Infection, and now he drew Cast Down.
Okay, that's a nice 1-2 punch here.
Yeah, he's got to watch out, though, right? Because every spell he casts means Syncopate is not up.
Yeah, McVety, very heavy on mana now, has made a 7th land drop.
I'll correct. That wasn't a cast down. It was a Moment of Craving. Much better here for Rosum.
Yeah, quite a lot better.
No Legion Warboss. With John Rosum back up to 6, passes the turn. 5 mana up, so maybe he can leave Syncopate up. It's close. Here's Gitu Lava Runner. That has haste. We have 2 spells in the graveyard. Do we? Actually, hold on.
I'm pretty sure. Maybe not. Oh, yeah, this little risk factor.
Risk factor's gone. No, we don't do it. It doesn't have haste.
Huh.
Yeah, I just assume once I see a stack that large that it's there.
Yeah, you cast a bunch of Pyromancers and Steamkins in this game, right?
Was there 2 Wizard's Lightnings? I don't.
So there's the Lightning Strike on the Teferi. That happened. Yeah, there's no attack anyway, I'll tell you that much.
1-1 swings in. Fungal Infection for 1 from Rosum. Yeah, it does not have haste. And that means he can leave up 4 mana for another Chemist's Insight. Does he go for it?
From 6, I think it's kind of safe. The one thing you have to be concerned about is risk factor.
Because he could go risk factor, jumpstart risk factor, which is just...
Well, he doesn't have a card to jumpstart it right away. It's just that taking 4 or drawing 3 cards are both a problem.
So let's say you're in John's spot. You draw 2, and then your opponent casts risk factor. Which mode are you choosing?
It depends what's in his hand. With my opponent being out of cards, I kind of just want to go to 2.
Okay. Right, because the problem is if you let him draw 3, then he's going to immediately jumpstart it. So you're letting him draw 5?
Yeah, that's a really big problem.
Well, he's going to do it. Here's a draw 2. If it's a risk factor, John Rosum's going to get really punished. But he decides it's worth the risk, and he looks at his opponent. You have it, and Max says, no, untap your lands.
Well, I think it was safe. I think that going to 2 might have been fine.
Okay.
That's the real thing that sells that play. And it's also risk factor is about the only card you're really concerned about. Like a lightning strike is kind of whatever in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's and that's exactly the thought that Rosum went through as well. He says, you know, it's close, but this is definitely worth it.
Yeah, I would not like to be risk factor
there. Yeah.
But it's not the end of the game.
Cast Down takes care of the Gitu Lava Runner. And now Rosum has plenty of cards getting to untap again. We might be heading over to Modern. Rosum draws Teferi, and yeah, quickly going to tap those 5. Here's the Hero of Dominaria, and it's going to work. Rosum draws the card. Here's a land, going to get to untap up to 6 mana. I like where this is headed for the Esper control deck. McVety up to 3 cards.
And it's getting to be a game state where McVety needs a Frenzy, but Rosum already has the Invoke the Divine.
Yeah, if he invokes the Divine of Frenzy and make sure he can always syncopate a risk factor, those are the only 2 cards that matter for McVety here, and Rosum has them both covered.
Right.
With that in play, I think Teferi goes to 8 and gets the game.
Yep. Yeah, once you have this one-sided Howling Mine going on, pretty easy to keep pace with the red deck.
And here is risk factor. Rosum immediately. Single blue, and what does that need to be? Hold on. Yeah, 6. Got it.
Yeah, this is a big win getting that with the Syncopate.
A clean 1-for-1 for risk factor. This is during Rosum's upkeep, but this is when it's very stupid. You always put those things during your opponent's upkeep to try to get their mana, but then Teferi just untaps 2 of the lands.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this design.
Yeah.
It's just really...
You just like can't, there's no way out.
Both players enjoy the gameplay.
All right, fight with fire. Max says, is this going to work? Does this win? No, Sinister Sabotage.
Man, you know, you worked through so many of those, but the deck is heavy on counter spells.
That is the 3rd one, huh?
Yeah, at least the 3rd one.
I see the other 2. I guess there's a giant. Yeah. There's a stack of cards there. It could be the 4th.
3 or 4. A lot of sabotages, multiple syncopates, an Essence Scatterer too. Fought through a lot of counter spells.
What a boring blue mage. And see, on Surveil, John bins Vraska's Contempt. That is not a good sign.
I don't feel nice about that.
Draws off Teferi. Up to 7. Gonna go ahead and jumpstart Chemist's Insight. Yeah, get rid of that Glacial Fortress. 2 more cards. And Field of Ruin from Rosum. And we'll have Vona, Butcher of Magan. That is the win con Rosum goes to out of the sideboard. If Teferi's not enough by itself, this Teferi would likely be enough. But once we connect with Point of Lifelink...
Ooh, is this it?
Another Fight with Fire. Wait, that works!
Wow. Nice!
And Vona in play, McVety draws the other Fight with Fire, and he catches Rosum the turn before the lifelink was going to connect.
Yeah, that's what I said. He worked through so many counterspells. Rosum had to run out at some point. And wow, lethal Fight with Fire. You don't often kick 2 of those to win a blue matchup, but a really spectacular finish to